Okay, everything is clear. When I came and I arrived, I could see that there's still a few people here from Daimler AG. I may be wrong. Yes, we're your small brother. I'll come back to what we are doing there exactly. But we don't have to feel ashamed because we're so small. The beginning of the presentation, as it says in the agenda, maybe some of you will be able to do something with the title there. PEER, what's it got to do with anything? PEER, digitalization of EE development. Well, I have to say this is exactly the challenge that we have set ourselves. What is it I want to show you today? I want to very briefly introduce you to Daimler buses, where we're active, how many colleagues we have, what brands we have, etc. And then quickly we move over to the challenges that we are facing at the moment. And then I'll talk about our approach, PEER, our product engineering. And then in the end, there'll be a short or brief summary. Starting with a few facts and figures on Daimler buses. We are one of the big business units, and I hope the Daimler colleagues will agree with when I say big, of Daimler AG. As far as sales goes, we are the smallest one, 4.4 billion euros in turnover last year, and roughly 18,300 people working for us. Maybe in the meantime, since these figures were written down, a few more joined us. We have a worldwide organization. We're active in Germany and Europe, but also Latin America, South Africa, India, which is getting more and more relevant for us in Southeast Asia. If we look at where these 18,300 developers or people are working for us today, a large number of them work in Germany, and I think we're quite proud of it, and rightly so. But on the other hand, we increasingly work together with our colleagues in Turkey, and if I'm not wrong, there has been a factory in Turkey since the 60s, and our colleagues in Latin America are extremely focused on supporting us here again, and also we're active in the other regions of the world. Now, if you want to buy a bus from us, maybe one of you is interested, then generally speaking, in Europe you end up with 4 brands, Mercedes-Benz and Cetra is the 2 big ones. If you have read the article in the newspapers today, if you want to buy one of our new e-buses, then our Omni Plus colleagues give you the complete connectivity service, and with the bus store colleagues you can say, okay, the new EDB may be a bit expensive, I'll wait a few years and then it'll get down in price and I'll take a used one. So much in terms of facts and figures on Daimler buses. What are the major challenges that led us to say, okay, we have to see how electronic development needs to be digitized further? I brought 3 challenges here. I'm quite sure there's many more, but these are the 3 that are very important to us at the moment. Number 1 is new technologies and simultaneously a large number of variants. Example here, you can see on the picture, this is our future bus. Last year, I think, it was driving autonomously in Amsterdam. I just addressed it before. E-drive is a very important topic for us. Our colleagues, some of our colleagues have taken over their first products, shared services. We are building up the connectivity services here and autonomous driving, where we've introduced the first Robobus, but we're still working on that one. In addition to what you've seen before, it's nice that you're actually active in many markets and meet many customers. On the other hand, though, we have to get organized worldwide, and we're developing these products in a global network. That's to say, the work that needs to be done is interconnected worldwide, globally, and needs to be coordinated, distributed, and then re-coordinated. again. And the market, quality standards and norms, we were able to see a few today around quality, functional safety, cybersecurity, data privacy, free and open source software. All of these are subjects that we need to face up to. And now I should like to introduce you to a person which has gone very dear to my heart in the last years. This is Helena, and I should like to show you how it works in Helena's day-to-day life.
Her everyday work at Daimler Buses involves developing new versions of air components, ensuring smooth interfaces with other components, and implementing customer special requests. In this process, she deals with a whole bunch of different tools and spreadsheets. These work well individually, but in total they are barely connected. So Helena has to track down all the information and spreadsheets by hand, and can't be sure that everything's up to date. It's laborious, time-consuming, and aggravating.
Kommt jemand von Ihnen bekannt vor?
That sound familiar to some of you? Well, our developers think that sounds familiar. Developers live in the very world that Helena has just shown you. However, at the same time, they need to manage to control complex technologies, master complex technologies, connecting and doing so by connecting people globally while ensuring quality and technical compliance. I mean, this is something that's highly extremely important in automotive at the moment. The diesel scandal is one thing, but there are others, and we have to make sure that this doesn't fall on our feet later on, but we have to preventively do something about it. What can we do about it then? How can we prevent it? Now, which biggest OEM or supplier doesn't have this? A wonderful V module with milestones and quality gate. For us, this is more than 100 activities, I think 130 now, which you have to meet the quality requirements for if you want to get a model project through our development process. You can imagine how enthusiastic people are, developers like Helena, in particular when it comes to us telling them, okay, you have to do 130 activities, the entire V model takes you so and so many years to do it, and then the quality gates are of no more interest to them because it's too late, it takes too long. Behind this, of course, there are many project managers, system developers, component developers, wiring harness developers, safety and security managers have to cooperate so that we get all the things together and get maturity of the product as early as possible in the individual item. Our vision now is for this complete EE development to be integrated into one EE data backbone. Is to say, in the end, that's subjects such as requirements engineering, the complete field of configuration management, wiring harness development, project reporting, GE architectures, functional safety, that we integrate all of this into one data backbone. We call it PEER, our product engineering, and it's powered by PREEvision. And once we are done, we hope that Helena feels like this.
EE engineering tool. Helena's work is now getting much easier. PEER brings together many of the standard tools and spreadsheets. In the process, PEER creates useful views of components, architectures, and systems, all within a single tool. Let's say Helena wants to generate or update information on her component. PEER suggests possible perspectives and Helena chooses one. So if she's working on a prototype, she might have PEER display what signals her control unit exchanges with other control units through which pins and wires. And all the information is always up to date because PEER is a database. With just a few clicks, Helena generates an up-to-date virtual image of her component with information on the electrical and electronic aspects. By looking at the existing variants of her component in a direct comparison, she can decide right away whether one of these variants can be reused for a new prototype or whether she needs to create a new variant, saving her time-consuming research. Fantastic. Creating circuit diagrams and wiring harnesses is another of PEER's strengths. These are often very complex and have numerous model-specific variants and characteristics. Peer immediately helps Helena figure out how her component should be correctly attached to the neighboring components in the vehicle, or instantly indicates any problems. This saves even more time, and Helena can see the results of her work at a glance. Peer also improves global collaboration. Unlike the various spreadsheets, the Peer database reflects all content consistently in the latest versions. This ensures that Helena and her colleagues worldwide always receive the same correct data. Helena is excited. Peer combines all important development stages in a single tool, so Helena no longer has to search, compare, and input by hand. That makes her job even more enjoyable.
Alles klar. So, jetzt genug Werbevideos. Jetzt zeige
Okay,
ich mal konkret,
that's enough of beating our drum.
Prozesses machen.
Let's show a little bit what we are doing in our development process, as much down to the point as I may. Okay, you see the individual steps that we are doing in our development process. We heard it from a friend from BMW. Naturally, at the beginning, we are working in a highly abstract world. We have to think about what our EE architectures look like, which used to be the first biggest use case of PREEvision. Our colleagues liked it very much. And next, it shows us which systems we are mapping onto these technical platforms and what the logical functions and modules need to be presented and represented. This may be the birth moment of a new component in a highly abstract context, but I roughly know what I want to do with it later on. If this gets more and more concrete by way of the development process, I have to describe, I have certain functions which I need to realize by way of plugs and pins, then I have to describe the tool more and more detailed. It gets interesting now, because on the one hand, I don't want to set up the information that I have had before once again, but I want to reuse the basis that I've already got. Next, the life cycle of the ECU, I need to start thinking about that life cycle. And we call it component or year release. So we think about what compatibility statements we have to make, which hardware to go with, which software, and which parameters or which parameter structure is compatible. That means to say, I have to make sure that later on, if I do my parameterization for certain prototypes or what have you, I can't just pick out any parameters, but based on these compatibility statements, I have to be able to do my configuration. Otherwise, I don't just put figures together on the basis of certain Excel list and wonder why I've got a problem in there, because the software may not know these parameters yet. And last but not least, here again, this is about the same information of the development of this ECU to be modified further, more and more, starting with the drawings, later on with the electric circuit diagrams, and then with the wiring harness. All of this data is to be reused. So what's important to us here, what we're doing is we're accompanying the component, the ECU, from its birth, hopefully till its grave in the end, but basically we're doing this by way of the product development cycle. And the information that we are enriching, we can use it more and more, reuse it time and again, and can add more and more information. Otherwise, Helena would keep asking, well, what's the additional value if I have to re-describe the same component all the time? I could do that with Excel or DOS. What we have in addition is we started thinking with more than 130 ITs, milestones, functional safety involved, etc. We started to think, what do I actually find out, and how can I check what I've already done in the tool? So we have a project checklist, which, for those colleagues which have working packages, they can tick off individual steps with respect to all the tasks which I should have done with respect to milestone number 13, where I should know what the design is and what the jobs are that the component needs to be do. Have I actually done all this, and has everybody else done their bit? Where are we now, in order to just give you some information about what I mentioned we're talking about? Meanwhile, the development of wiring harnesses and wiring circuits, wiring diagrams, circuit diagrams, we're only doing it in Peer. not just in product development, but also in mass production, in particular when it comes to customer special demand development. Others might not know this. We have more than 30 users worldwide, and some of them who look into the system occasionally in order to look what the after-sales service does and what it all looks like. Next, we have something that was also a very important step, and that's the component life cycle. At the moment, we have 5 colleagues worldwide who are working on the first ECUs. Also, when it comes to parameterization, we're just starting to work with these colleagues worldwide. And there are a few expert use cases all around the ECU pinning, the system design, EE architectures. If you just imagine, not everybody in our company does that. There are colleagues who are specialized in this worldwide. So we have been starting to work on this, but we've got a number of customers who are waiting for this kind of information. I keep hearing from my colleagues, just last week, when can colleague XYZ can come and see us and show us the variant of his architecture and show us what has changed from the old to the new generation? And I can tell this colleague now, well, he's a little bit like Father Christmas, who comes only once a year, but this information, you can pick it out in peer, look at it in peer, specific for all the variants, and you can see what the architectures look like. And the use case, in addition to specialist teams that we have, the ones that has been rolled out most is project maturity. That's to say, the reporting, the regular checking, where am I with my project? And I can do this worldwide now. What that means is, in total, we have roughly little more than 50 regular users. And we can say with a clear conscience that more than 100 people are using it every now and then, looking into peer every now and then, are happy if they get shown something new, etc. And regularly they find, hey, it does help me, even though the threshold of showing it to colleagues, I mean, you were addressing this before, usability is always a topic also for us. There's a high threshold to overcome. Few figures. On peer currently, I think these are old figures already, we're working with more than 16 million artifacts in our design model. I hope I didn't get the terminology wrong, otherwise I'll get skinned and fleeced by my colleagues. What we've done is we've set up specific perspectives for the use cases, because not every user needs the same context all the time. So we've got one perspective where we are looking in very concrete terms at the requirements of our system design, what are the logical architecture diagrams like, etc. And then Vector helped us to build an explorer in order to describe the component life cycle. Here I can make compatibility statements, I can do prototype or vehicle assignments, and I've got these bundles together from which I am later on meant to be supplying this configuration with. And then you can see this explorer approach. We are using this rather consistently because it's a very nice process of running this kind of process. We are doing the same thing with the project checklist. This is just an excerpt from a bigger architecture project that we are doing. I can open it on different levels. I can do this for a single work package, but for all of the work packages, I can do it for teams, for projects, for departments, for center, or for me personally, for my team round, because I want to keep a regular look at where we are. And something that cost us a lot of sweat and tears, and that was wiring harness development. The question came up before, to what extent you can work together with suppliers with PREEvision. Well, this is where we are doing it. We're not exchanging drawings, but here we are working with model data. Now, there are a few topics which have been in our mind continuously, and I want to share them with you. It has been addressed before, version and variants. Just the challenge, the pure definition, to find the pure definition for variant and version It's almost as hard to find a clear definition of what is a system. Depending on who you ask, you get different answers. So, but this is part and parcel of the database. So if we can't agree on this, then we have a real problem. So we have to look at this topic, at this problem, or this challenge. And we have been doing this for a number of years, and we've been doing it intensively recently. Usability also, I mean, you were seeing it, any approaches that we have, it's a little gray and a little blue at the same time. Everything is okay, but it'll keep evolving. The more users we have, the more we find out what is important for them. And I think we are very well cooperating also with Vector and other partners in order to improve further. Performance and infrastructure. Well, quite honestly, you were addressing it before. We have a number of users. It can never be fast enough for them. We've equipped them with everything that the market has available for this purpose. But of course we want to improve further, but it must be clear. I mean, 16 million artifacts, I mean, they want to be loaded, and all of the relationships need to be loaded. So just opening a table or starting an app from your smartphone, that's an entirely different cup of tea. And last but not least, at Daimler in general terms, it's our policy, and I think rightly so, because it's a very important topic that we have to dedicate ourselves to, all of us. This is a change for each and every individual developer. There are colleagues who have been in the company many, many more years than I have been, and they know their way around the engineering and technology side a lot better than I do. But I need to integrate them into this change process. Otherwise, I can think up all sorts of things, can look up an updated component information. If the colleague isn't convinced and is willing to actually work with it, and then we'll be fighting and struggling all the way. So this is one of the most important ones for me. For me, it's more important than usability and performance. What are we doing? Well, we've got 4 channels in order to familiarize our colleagues with PEER. An online portal, SharePoint, where the colleagues can see the complete video that you were seeing before about what PEER is in German and English. And you'll also find the start screen that we are seeing at the beginning, so that colleagues, if they use some instruction or if they use a video tutorial, which we also have, that they can actually get used to. I click on this, and then this and that will happen. We're also announcing everything that's new, and the orange button, if somebody has an idea, they can click the button and can share it with us, and feed it back to us. What's also very important to us, in particular because we're an international organization where information needs to be available regularly and at all times. Our manual, our documentation is available in 2 languages on this portal, and there are video tutorials. That is to say, I don't need to wait for the next training session. Once I've learned, when I've got the basic know-how about how PEER works, I can just look at a different tutorial. For example, how do I generate a work package report? How do I update my component, etc. I don't need to wait until it's Christmas and Father Christmas comes around again. Naturally, there are colleagues who don't work so much with YouTube or not so much online, and for them it's very important to actually meet these people in the corridor. So it's very important in our development section. There are big posters explaining what PEER is, what it does, and what it changes and what it requires from each and every one of us. And last but not least, we are getting together in very physical terms with the colleagues. They can ask us questions, we give them introductions in a team, or we have workshops, 3 to 5 people, where we can show in very practical and hands-on terms what is going to change by way of PEER. What are the colleagues saying about this? Naturally, there are those, and we're very happy about them, who say, just like Helena, with this Rio concept, that will help me a lot, because this information, which I had to put into all sorts of lists time and again, And at the same time, I have to keep this information consistent. If I put it into one list and 3 months later I put it into a different list, I mean, who will keep it up to date? I myself wouldn't like to do that either. But then there are colleagues who see that there's a lot of work behind it to get it into the tool and get it up and running, and say, well, you have to put a lot of effort into it to make it work, to make it effective and efficient. Is it actually really worth it? Is the work worth the effort? And once I've shown it by way of a workshop, then I said, well, I didn't know that Peer can do that as well. It's fantastic. And naturally, there are such colleagues who still say, well, before Peer, my work appeared to be easy. Just opening an Excel file and fill it in is comparatively straightforward. Starting SAP, if I've worked a number of years with it, is quite simple and straightforward. So for me personal, what is my own benefit? What's my added value? I see the entire picture, but what's in it for me? And on the other side, colleagues are saying all these offerings and say, okay, fantastic, I can see it, architecture, system, ECU information, wiring, circuit diagrams and wiring harness information. I have it available at one glance. I don't have to wait for it to be updated after a certain period of time. So yes, I can rely on Peer being the single point of truth. So in summary, what we extremely like is we are quite sure that what we are doing is the right thing. We've invested a lot of energy, a lot of work, but it's starting to pay back, and colleagues are asking for it more and more. Let me just use this opportunity here to say thank you to the fantastic Vector team, which has supported us week by week. Even if I asked the fifth question, which was identical and the same way as I asked it before, for me it's worth a big hand to Vector team, which has supported us so fantastically over the long period of time. And last but not least, we have a few questions and we have a few wishes as well. I'm done in a minute. However, the question is, if we have occasional users, how do we make it more reachable for them, more faster for them? They get a job to be done in a checklist, and that doesn't want to wait until the tool with 16 million artifacts has been loaded. He wants to read it. What do I do for them? And PREEvision is, unfortunately, it's not our only tool. It's not our only vector tool either. So the question is, how does PREEvision integrate into the entire tool landscape and above and beyond this into our landscape as well? Thank you very much.